Now, America has serious problems with China. It's the world's most populous country, and it's aiming to edge us out economically and militarily. And by the way, they have an ambitious plan. Many of you have not heard of this, but it's called Made in China 2025. Now, check it out. It's a 10-year program, and the goal is to transform China into an advanced manufacturing leader, especially in the following: information technology, robotics, space and commercial aviation equipment, biomedical engineering, rail manufacturing, everything, basically everything. Tools, 3D printing, I could say software engineering, goes on and on. And we need to understand this, that China, even if they do help us with North Korea, they're not going to stop until they achieve total hegemony in their region, and I think in other continents, Africa and beyond. That's the goal. And joining us now for reaction to my comments and the president's speech from New York, Gordon Chang. He's a Daily Beast columnist and an East Asia expert. And here in Washington with me, Mike Pillsbury. He's the director of the Center for Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute and the author of the fantastic book, The 100-Year Marathon. Let's start with you, Mike. The president's speech, first, your reaction to it.
Oh, I thought it was very good. He's able to balance the idea of threatening North Korea, but also holding out the path. He used the word path to them. And he also invoked Little Rocket Man's grandfather. I thought that was quite a brilliant touch. What your grandfather wanted is not what we have today in North Korea. It's really hell, he said. So he's shaming the grandson and then offering the path out toward economic growth, better relations, and then giving the price. You've got to give up these nuclear weapons. I thought it was a very good speech.
We're going to get to China in a moment, but Gordon, confronting evil, we see this in Texas, in the United States, with this horrific shooting. But the president confronted evil in his remarks tonight. Your perspective.
Oh, absolutely. You know, President Trump talked about freedom, free societies, free markets. The rest of the region, East Asia, heard this as America's response to China's Xi Jinping, who on October 18th gave his 3-hour, 23-minute work report, which is a speech that extolled the opposite, that extolled state domination of society, state-dominated markets. So it's very important for President Trump to say these things because it cut to the heart of the differences between the United States and China, and it also explained the strength of the American system, the strength of the free world. So I give him really high marks for doing this because that had to be said.
Now, I want to play a soundbite for both of you from President Trump last week. I interviewed him. And actually, we'll play John Kelly first. We'll have time to get Trump. But this is General Kelly from last week in my interview. And I asked him about our relationship with China. Let's watch.
My hat's off to them for taking advantage of whatever they've been able to take advantage of to have that trade relationship. This president is committed to changing that relationship, but to do it in a collegial way.
Collegial way, changing our relationship with China. I did ask President Trump about it. We don't have time to play the whole bite, but he's basically said, look, they're really helping us on North Korea. They're doing a lot to help now. And so it's not as simple. Essentially saying to me, Mike, it's not as simple as it was when I was talking about this issue in 2016 in the campaign.
President Trump has also kind of previewed what's going to happen tonight when he flies to Beijing. He said, we'll see. So he's left it open. I think General Kelly is known as a pragmatic sort of optimist who wants to get the best out of people who work for him. But he's decidedly more optimistic than the president, I think.
Gordon, the president delinked North Korea, our problem with, South Korea, and our trade imbalance with South Korea after that free trade agreement we signed with Bush. He delinked that from the helping South Korea and working with them against the North Korean threat. So he delinked trade from national security. But it doesn't look like he's going to do that with this Beijing event tomorrow. It looks like we're going to kind of back off a little bit on some of this concern or action against China on the trade cheating, which maybe that's just pragmatic, but it's a shame because we're really on the cusp of holding China accountable, and we might, I guess, not be able to do that now because of the North Korean threat.
I suspect that President Trump will go after China not only on trade, but also on North Korea in South China Sea, Taiwan, cyber attacks, all the rest of it. And the reason is that, as you pointed out, China is challenging the United States across the board. And this is not just an Asia issue. You know, China is challenging the American democracy, American free societies. They do this almost every day in their propaganda, in People's Daily, Global Times, China Daily, all the rest of it. So President Trump really doesn't have a choice. He's got to confront this challenge in all of its facets. So I believe that despite what we've heard so far, that the president is going to be forced to do this. And if for no other reason, there's 2018 elections. You have Steve Bannon, who said he's going to make China the issue in every race. And that's a very important thing, because the challenge from China is, you know, North Korea is a danger, but North Korea is only a danger because of China. China's been weaponizing North Korea. President Trump talked about that yesterday in Seoul. That's very important, that China is held accountable for sending weapons and arms and technology to the North Koreans.
I hope you are right, Gordon. I am concerned. Mike, a friend of mine today sent me an email about Goldman Sachs. China's sovereign wealth fund plans up to $5 billion in additional U.S. investments. And his message to me was, Goldman is helping China take over our industrial sector in the United States. A lot of money to be made with China buying up American companies, investing huge in the United States. Big money, big money.
There's a book about it by Hank Paulson, where he pretty much recounts how he succeeded as representative of Goldman Sachs in doing just that. He showed the Chinese how to convert their state-owned enterprises and float them in Hong Kong or in Wall Street. And they thanked him. Goldman Sachs has announced over the years it's made billions and billions off this. They're very proud of it.
Remember Smithfield? China came in and bought. They wanted to buy, Gordon, right, semiconductor industry in Seattle. They were shut down by the Committee on Foreign Investment, but they got a lot of extra cash for that trade surplus. They got a lot of cash to float. And I don't think we're allowed to go and just buy huge industries in China.
No,
are we,
right.
Gordon? Are we able to do that in Beijing?
No, we're not permitted to do that. And Xi Jinping, what he's done is he's taken state enterprises and he's made them invulnerable by essentially giving them state subsidies. And you mentioned this Made in China 2025 initiative.
The joke.
Which means to take 10 critical industries and make sure that China dominates them by the year 2025. Also, he's made a lot of these big state enterprises, already gargantuan, into formal state monopolies. In other words, reversing the process of reform. So, no, we can't buy that. And I think that in Washington right now, you have a consensus that China cannot be allowed to buy the American technology sector.
Yeah, Gordon and I disagree a little bit here. President Trump's got a strategy. Wilbur Ross has echoed it too recently. Personal relations with President Xi, the leader, the king as he called him, can go a long way toward changing the predatory policies of the Chinese.
I don't buy that. I don't. So, I think President Xi is so far ahead of the personal relation. I don't care how many times you have him at Mar-a-Lago. I don't care how much the red carpet is rolled out. They have a goal to dominate most industries in the world, and it might seem like a pie-in-the-sky thinking. I think they're well on the way to doing some of this.
Well,
Space weaponry, all of this, but Mike, you've become a powder puff. You become,
no.
What is this?
What President
Relationship.
Trump, he's trying something here is very strategic.
It is.
He's going to give them a chance on their soil.
Okay, I got it. We're out of time.
He says, we'll see.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, we'll see. Gordon and Mike, great to see you both. And still ahead, establish